We have a wonderful masterclass coming up with Mary Druhan. Very excited. I asked for some volunteers from the amateur adult community, and we have 3 players who are going to play for us. Mary, are you in the room yet? All right, I think we still have.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Welcome. We're so fortunate to have you with us today. Mary is a wonderful clarinetist and teacher from Texas. I saw her do a masterclass in Vancouver, and she was just brilliant. She has wonderful advice. So, Mary, we're excited to have you here. Anything you want to say before we dive in and start?
No, I'm so excited. I got a couple of glimpses at some videos here in preparation for the class, and I'm just grateful to be here, and hopefully we can do a little learning together. So thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Troy, if you're here, can you unmute yourself? Our first player is Troy Hyatt, coming to us from France. I'm going to share his video and music on screen so we can all see it, and then Mary will work with Troy to give him some feedback. All right, here we go. I'm just going to go ahead and start playing.
Okay.
That's excellent. Excellent, Troy. Thank you so much for putting that recording together. I noticed that several people are putting comments in the chat, so I hope you have a chance to read those. They're mimicking everything that I was thinking in those chat responses. First of all, your playing is extremely expressive, and I think that that's just a tribute to your musicianship and your ability to communicate emotion through your playing. And it's very, very difficult to do that if you don't have good air support. So I'd like to just recognize how great you and your teachers are doing on making sure that that air is supportive of the line all the time. Nicely done.
Thank you.
I did notice just a couple of things that I wanted to hopefully work with you on today, to maybe help refine things just a little bit because the musicianship is so beautiful. The first one is when you go to breathe between the portions of the phrases and between the phrases themselves, sometimes the sound finishes very abruptly and doesn't have a really soft finish to it. Um, is as a clarinetist, one of the things that's really difficult for us is we're supposed to sound like we're singing through this instrument, but we have a single reed vibrating. It makes it very difficult. So I just want to work on that skill with you really quickly and see if we can do just a little bit of that. So you have your clarinet ready to go?
Yes, I do.
Excellent. And Michelle, if you could put that music back up there for just a second, we're going to try just the first maybe big phrase here. And Troy, what I'd like for you to do is breathe in the same places. So that is at the end of the third measure on the C. And what I want you to try to do is play that C as long as you would like, but making sure that you fully taper it before you keep going.
Okay.
And then the same thing at A, right before A, when you get to the throat tone A there, making sure that you hold it out and finish the decrescendo before you breathe. And if it needs a little extra time for right now, go ahead and do that. I want to see how long it takes you to really finish that note. And then we'll talk about speeding that process up. Go ahead.
Okay. So you said at the end of the third measure.
Yes.
Right, okay.
And then at the end of the eighth measure, right before A.
Okay.
All right, nice. Troy, you just have such a beautiful line. Again, it's really, really lovely. So what did you notice when you played that C? You had a nice tapered release that time. How did you control that?
How did I? That's a good question. I don't really know how I did that. I think you just told me to do it, so I did it.
It's magic. I just have to make the command.
Yeah.
It is really a difficult craft for us. And a lot of times we learn that so naturally through the trial and error process. You can probably remember being a young clarinetist and squeaking a lot. But if we don't stop and acknowledge how that's happening, sometimes it's harder for us to really control it quickly. So one exercise that I do with my students is once I have them do what you just did, which is to play it beautifully with a little extra time, then we go back and figure out what's doing that. So could you play that C, the long C at the end of the third measure? And I want you to take 4 seconds to take that C from its loudest forte to a really soft, soft, soft niente, and pay attention to how you're doing that.
Okay. Let me try it.
Right. Yes. And always with trial and error, the first time you try is going to be a little bit sketchy. So try that again. And this time do it in 3 counts. Already better. Good. Yeah. You probably feel a lot of things going on around your mouthpiece, right?
Yes, I do. I think what I feel, I think I feel my air going faster.
Good. Good. Yes, the air needs to stay fast in order to keep that reed vibrating as we get quieter. Otherwise, the reed will just completely stop and it sounds like it's chopped off. Right.
Well, so one thing I think I know what you're saying. I think what I do is I think, oh, here's where I'm going to take a breath. So I stop before I
Yes.
think that I have to take a breath.
Could you try
I
this
don't
again?
hold the note long enough.
I'd like for you to do it now in 2 counts from a big loud to a soft, soft. And as you're getting softer, I want you to feel like your top lip is getting longer and stronger against the mouthpiece. and that it's leading those corners to do the same thing, but keep your air nice and fast. Nice. Excellent. And now do that in one count. Right. And so I think this is something that sometimes can get a little confused, is that we're always told don't move your embouchure, and we're told stay still, don't let your teeth move, don't let your bottom lip move. But there are slight manipulations that go on in our embouchure and in our voicing all the time. And this is a really good way to experiment with that so that you can control it faster. So going from 4 to 3 to 2 to 1 counts is very valuable for us because it forces us to speed up the process and really gain control of it. So now that you've done that once, can you play the whole first phrase again? And this time in time. So if you do need to breathe, you'll have to control that very, very carefully to finish the note before you have time to breathe.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
did you want to?
I don't know if that is something that feels a little awkward to you, but it sounds beautiful, Troy. And I think, you have a lot of embouchure strength there, and that's really allowing you the ability to learn that very quickly. For all of the people that are out here listening and learning from you, that process is harder to do if your embouchure muscles are weak. So just be patient with yourself, and don't underestimate the value of long tones and register slurs in your routine, because that's why Troy was able to change that so quickly. So well done. It's really beautiful.
Well, I
Okay.
think that little, what you said about the top lip, that was very, very helpful.
It is extremely helpful. And it's funny because, if you watch flute players and the way that they control their dynamics, you'll see a lot of those changes visually with the shape of the aperture and how it controls things. But with the clarinet, it's a lot harder to see how those muscles are interacting with the mouthpiece and the reed. And I think a lot of times we don't talk about this very much because it's kind of confusing. So a lot of this is going to benefit just from you in a practice room experimenting with why does that work or why is that not working, and then trying to label and identify, when it's improving. So very good. Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention to you is just very quickly, I wanted to introduce the concept of resonance fingerings. I think you're actually using them sometimes when you're going back and forth across the break. You're using some fingers down. Is that right?
Yes.
And then sometimes on the long notes, though, it seems like your notes are sometimes fully open, like your throat tone A. Is that true?
Yes, probably. Yeah. Yeah, I
Okay,
think so.
so I would just encourage you, as great a musician as you are, to try to get comfortable with the best resonance fingering of your instrument to make sure that those throat tones match in tone color and in pitch with the notes around them. There's some very good resources on this. One of them is Tom Ridenour has a book called Clarinet Fingerings. And in the very front section of that book, there's a little, maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs on throat tones. And then he throws in a few options for each of your throat tones with different combinations of fingerings to help make the notes more resonant and bring the pitch down so that they're in tune. So could we try, I just want to try do you see the D at the end of measure 7 and the A on the downbeat of measure 8? I'd like to hear these 2 notes next to each other slowly. And then on the A, I'd like for you to leave down your left hand 2 and 3 and your right hand 2 and 3 in C, or your low F key. And let's see if the A and D are in tune with one another, and also if the A matches in tone. A little confusing, right?
Yeah, my
Yeah.
fingers don't want to do it yet.
So one of the things, and Michelle, if you could switch the screen back to show me as well real quick. I have my clarinet out here. I'm not sure if everybody can see this, but one of the things that I do with my students is I have them put their hands together just like this, right? And so they can, hold on, let me move my clarinet. So if you put your hands together like this, and then just move 3 fingers, I want you to open your left hand, thumb in one, and your right hand one, and then close them again. So you're basically just pointing with 3 fingers for a second. These are the 3 fingers that are going to move. Okay. And then your other fingers will stay in place. And then go back and play your D. So long D, and then down to your A with those fingers still in place. So you'll move those 3. You try again.
Yeah.
I think maybe
It's
you
good.
left something on the thumb. Try that one more time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful. How does that A feel?
Oh, it felt better. I like
Yeah.
that.
You know, when you have a really great resonance fingering for your throat tones, all of a sudden the notes feel more sturdy. So that's a good indicator that that's a good fingering choice for that note. Every clarinet's a little different, so you may need to be patient selecting the best fingering options for those throat tones, and try to find some that are somewhat close to one another so that you can get to them easily, because it can be a little confusing. But I would start with Tom Ridenour's book. That's a really good resource. And I also have a free little pamphlet on throat tones. I can send the link to Jessica, and that way she can send it out to anybody that's interested. But it's just a free little ebook pamphlet from my publishing stuff. But I think we're about out of time. You have been fantastic to work with. Thank you for trying all my tricks, and you sound great. Good job.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have Marilyn Frade, who is working on Rose Etude number 1 from 40 Studies. I'm just getting her video and music on screen to share. And Marilyn, if you're in the house, you can also unmute yourself and get ready to hear comments. Okay, here we go. I have it. I just put that on. Hi, Marilyn.
Hi.
Okay, here we go.
job, Marilyn. Marilyn, nicely done. I saw some
Thank
comments jumping in the chat for you as well. So I hope you have a chance to look at those. I wanted to just commend you on your ability to continue. And this is something that we have to work with young students, because it's so difficult to be a musician. You know, we want to stop and correct every little thing. And the act of actually continuing past a little bump is super hard to do. And you have done an excellent job of that. So nicely done. Your playing is very facile. Like, your fingers are nice and loose. There's not a lot of tension in your hands. So nice job with you and your teacher working on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have just a few things that I wanted to talk to you about, and I think these are good things for everyone. So hopefully someone will hear something, and it will relate to them as well. When you get to long notes in your music, I can see the wheels kind of going in there, and it looks like you're already problem solving the next portion of the material. And this is very common for musicians. We learn to anticipate and look ahead, which is great. Just be careful in that time that you're doing that you're still hearing the subdivision of unit of time, so that your long notes don't compress and get a little bit shortened with your anticipation of the next phrase's trouble. Because you do tend to lose your meter just a little bit around those long notes. So
losing that pulse, just because hanging on, and like you said, waiting for the next lots of notes to happen.
Right. I find that most of the time musicians are early coming off the long notes. And I think that's what it is they're just ready to get on to the next challenge, you know. So being really cognizant of that, and just, you know, it's difficult to go from practicing with a metronome to performing without a metronome. And we need to practice with a metronome often enough that we start to hear that internal clicking obnoxiousness, even when it's not sounding. So that's just something that we develop over, you know, a lot of time and patience. But I don't think that there's an actual rhythm issue in your playing. I think it's just anticipatory energy.
Okay. Yeah. And I did that without a metronome for sure. I do lots of practicing with, but on stuff like that, I think the metronome gets a bit too, when you're recording too.
For sure.
Almost distracting.
Absolutely. I agree. Okay. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is, this is really just kind of a finger coordination, long leap voicing exercise. You know, it's from the studies, which is different from the etudes. This is really challenging specific skills of the clarinetist to foster some development in those areas. And I thought that your ability to just kind of float through the technique and make some of those long leaps is actually very, very good. I wanted to ask you if you feel like your tone is sometimes challenged by having to be so busy in those leaps. Is that something that you struggle with?
Yes. And I haven't played that Rose study for quite a while. So it was sort of a challenge for me to go back and see. And I remember my first time playing it, it was like, I feel like I've improved a lot, but I definitely hear the undertones in those leaps. And I could hear them in the video, and I can hear them when I play. And I really try that fast air in the corners in, but I definitely would love to have more help in keeping that stream of air and how I can make those leaps.
Marilyn, you are like dead on. This is exactly what everybody in the room wants to know. You know, and that's why Rose wrote this exercise this way. It really does challenge us to be able to control the reed and its vibration. So I have just a couple of things. I feel like your embouchure is perfectly still. It looks fantastic when you're playing. I actually feel like your air support is very, very good as well. I think that a lot of times when you have a lot of motion in your fingers, that it's possible that in order to feel more stable at the mouthpiece, you might be biting a little harder than you need to. And as a result, if you get a little bit too tight and high on the reed from a continued effort with that, the reed will stop being able to vibrate as fast as it needs to produce those upper notes. So this is super common. So I'd like for you to start this again. And there's a question about undertones. So the undertone is when you're trying to play an upper note like that clarion B, and it's humming the E below just a little bit. So you'll hear like a underneath the sound. So what I'd like for you to focus on is doing everything you normally do the same, your
Okay.
air, your embouchure shape. But I
Okay.
want you to think about your right hand thumb. This is crazy, I know. What? The
That's
feet
okay.
and thumb, what? But your right hand thumb, push up towards your top teeth more.
Okay.
And then your left hand thumb, I want you to push the clarinet away into the back of your teeth a little bit more. This will counteract any sort of biting that's going on, especially when your fingers move a lot. And otherwise, don't change anything. And let's hear you just start that rose exercise again.
Okay. I'm going to make sure my original sound is on. Okay.
Okay, great. And I'm going to mute.
Okay. All right. Okay. Sorry. Wanted me to start the whole thing again, right? Okay. All right. Here goes. Okay. I can still hear it.
Okay, good. Yeah,
but I was trying to push out.
That's your first attempt, Marilyn. And everybody in the room, this is a lesson for you. Breathe through. Your first attempt when you're learning something different is supposed to be a little wild and crazy. Yeah. So just allow that to happen. Could you do it again a little bit slower? And this time, I want you to feel like both your thumbs are engaged and your corners are meeting that pressure on the corners of the mouthpiece so that everything's still.
So right hand pushing up towards the front teeth, and then but the other left hand thumb pushing out. It's up and out. Kind of?
Correct.
And then, okay.
Yes.
All right, slower, and I will start. You want me to just keep going? How many measures do you want me to do?
Maybe just 3 or 4 measures so you can experiment a little bit with it.
All right. Slower. Here we go.
Okay, excellent. I'm hearing really good things.
I did feel a little difference in going from the leap to the C.
I'm hearing a lot of good changes in there. This is the beginnings of changes. And so it might feel a little bit unsettled to you. When your clarinet squeaked there towards the end, it seemed to me like the mouthpiece actually shifted a little bit in your embouchure. This could be if you're going left to right hand and your right hand has too much tension or the angle's not right. And sometimes students will brace against the rod on that hand. And so when they try to put all their fingers down at once, it'll kind of shift the clarinet a little bit. Right. So all of these things kind of play into each other so much when we're trying to manipulate the instrument. So I would say, I'm going to introduce to you the torture that is rose number 1. And everybody in the room, you can cry with me on this one. I've been crying about this since the 80s. But, a lot of times the great teachers of the clarinet will make you do this etude at 16th note equals 60, which is supposed to invoke tears. And one of the reasons that we do this is because it allows us to really slow down and strengthen these muscles and really lock into the feel of those thumbs, and pay attention also to your arch, squeeze and release so that there's no shifting hand position. Yeah. So if you've never tried this at 16th note equals 60, which is a snail could go faster.
Okay. I had no idea. And I'd also never heard of the pushing up and out, but I definitely felt a difference in my mouth. And I could see how that could prevent me from biting.
Yes. It's a really good counteract to what our fingers do when we get very dizzy.
I feel like it was making things more stable, and the mouthpiece was against the back of my teeth as opposed to trying to just rest my teeth. Is that kind of how that should feel?
Yes.
Okay.
So your thumbs should be actively engaged all the time, both of them, when you're playing. This is really not possible on an open G, your left thumb can't do its business, right? But the rest of the time, always up and out.
Up and out.
I've heard people say snug up. So if you've ever heard a teacher say to snug up, that's what they mean. They mean to get the thumbs more engaged. And as you're thinking thumbs up or snugging up, it's also important to remember the value of that top lip strength. Howard Klug, who teaches at Indiana, he talks about how the underside of your lip, the pinkest, smoothest part of your lip, needs to be engaged towards the mouthpiece, and this will help with your strength and your ability to use that top lip muscle. So if you
I
have
feel like you told Troy that. I feel like that connection you just mentioned to Troy now with the lip and
yeah. That lip is super valuable for us to be able to play with a steady, warm tone and also control the instrument in leaps. And so just some experimenting there, I think, is going to help you a ton.
yeah, no, that's awesome. I just had never ever had done that, and so like I could already feel like a difference in how like it felt more stable and whatnot. So I appreciate that, and then also you feel like my air and embouchure, like I don't have to really work on that so much more, just that other piece now.
Yeah, your air is fantastic.
I
feel like all along your air has been super, super well supported. Can you try for me the second measure where you do F, C, G, C? But I want you to do it super slow like that. 1, 2, 3, about that speed. And I'm going to mute myself so we can really hear.
Okay, and hopefully no tears, right? Okay.
Yeah, one of the hardest things that we have to do on the clarinet is actually go from long fingerings to short fingerings and have stability. So that C to C at the end is one of the hardest things that we have to do. And your C to B, you're going up to your B. That was super, super clean. And then you had a little trouble getting to that C without a hum.
Felt weird. Just like
but you probably made a little bit of jaw adjustment on that long C. I'm guessing your teeth got just a tiny bit loose. And if that happens, then your reed can't stay super steady.
But I can see how going slow like that could really like make you pay attention to that, so that hopefully at some point it becomes more automatic.
This is the torture.
Well, no, I love that, because you're right. Honestly, this is a piece I first played when I joined Michelle's group, and I kind of put it back, so many other pieces to play, and I pulled it out and thought, well, let me see how I'm doing now. So it was, and I definitely feel improvements, but this I think is going to be the next thing to push me even further. So
yeah, and anytime you're doing fundamental change like this, it's a really good idea to do 3 to 4 minutes of super hard work and then take a break and do something that's more enjoyable. We need to do our hard work in spurts so that we don't get discouraged. And the next challenge to that, if you want an additional challenge, if you can do the same tempo, so 16th note equals 60, but tongue eighth notes on that. Da da dee 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 dee, because interrupting the reed's vibration with the tongue can slow the reed down enough to get the grunting and the humming to come back. So this is a really great exercise for all of those things. Just be patient.
Okay, no, this is really cool. There's something to work on, and I always have my Disney books when I need something fun. So
excellent. How are we doing on time, Michelle?
I think we probably should move on to.
Thank you so much, Mary. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Marilyn. Great job.
All right, next we have Brigitte from Belgium. And Brigitte, I'm going to let you introduce your whole name so I don't mispronounce it. If you want to say hi, I'll get your music on screen here.
Yes, I'm Brigitte from Belgium, yes.
Great. Okay, Brigitte, let's play your piece here. And Mary, up to you if you want to hear the whole thing or pause along the way. Just let me know.
Okay, great. Let's just start it and see how it's going. I know this is kind of a long excerpt, but let's see how it goes.
Great. I'm just gonna move Brigitte. Here we go. Sorry.
Yeah, take a break there, Michelle. Nice job. It's just so good. I got sent the link this morning for this. And I'm just so impressed with your playing. And I really wanted everyone to hear the whole thing. Maybe we'll get back to it here in just a minute, but good job getting that done. It's an exhausting little piece to play, even just to where you got so far. But there's a lot of comments in the chat. I hope you're able to read those and reap the rewards of all your hard work. But you sound really, really beautiful. Nicely done.
Thanks. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So I'm trying to think of the things that might be helpful to you. I just think you've done such a wonderful job already with your playing that really what it comes down to is just trying to figure out what are the things that still challenge you in being able to produce your best sound all the time, and see if we can maybe manipulate the way you handle those fundamentals just a little so that you're feeling more confident about when the music becomes challenging, if you're still sounding gorgeous. And actually, I think you do a really, really good job of this. I think there were a few times in there where sometimes when you go from a higher note to a lower note, your sound starts to kind of get a little bit rambunctious, or it spreads in tone just a little bit. Is that something that you're challenged by?
Yes, I don't know. You hear me? Yeah. Yes, I have comments about this too. Yes, sometimes that maybe my embouchure is like not steady then or something.
Yeah, your embouchure is beautiful. It's hard for us to see it in the
changing.
video. Yeah, but in your tone production, I don't hear any problems with your embouchure for sure. So we need to figure out then what's happening to help you. And this is probably true of every single person that's in this room. The clarinet has its own faults. We have to learn really how to predict what the clarinet wants from us in order to showcase those weaknesses. One of the things that the clarinet does not do very well is fall in register. So, for example, if you're playing a G on the top of the staff and your next note is slurred to a C on the low register, the clarinet's going to want to squeak. It doesn't want to fall a register and slow down the reed's vibrations just because you close the register key. So this is very normal for us. A lot of people will talk about how in order to make that transition happen, the only way to do that is to make an adjustment of the jaw, which is one way to do it for sure. I've actually seen woodwind method books where they say that's the only way to make that happen. The problem is if you move your teeth in your jaw while the reed is already vibrating, something bad will happen. The tone will spread, the pitch will go flat, and you're likely to squeak when that happens. And so the way my teacher taught me to do this was to actually use what I call the butterfly graze, or the light tongue technique. So even if it says to slur, you'll play the upper note, and then you'll very lightly tongue the lower note to slow the reed down in order to facilitate how much the reed needs to change when the thumb is closing. So if that's not something you've done before, that might be a good exercise for you. Sometimes we'll also do that when we go to throat tone fingerings from high notes. So for example, if you had to play a high C and then an open G, when you play the open G, a lot of times it will squeak for you. Have you noticed that as well?
Yeah, sometimes I squeak, yes.
Yes, not just you, the whole room. Everyone's like, yep, I do that too. That's the clarinet and its mouthpiece and reed just not wanting to cooperate, just because that hole closes. It's not going to dictate the reed slowing down that much. So if you've never done that legato tongue, I'm not sure my original sound is on here. Let me see if I can make that happen. Okay, so one of the things that you can try is trying to tongue the open G 3 or 4 times after you fall, and make it as light as possible so that you're not hearing it very well. It's almost like the tongue does a TH sound on the reed edge, close, close, close to the edge. And then when you need to fall to throat tones in your music, even if it's under a slur, you can use that skill. I just remember Diana Haskell when I was a young student is the one who taught me this technique. And I remember her saying, well, I don't want to hear it just because you're doing it, which is a big challenge for us. Have you ever used that technique before?
No, so what are you saying? You do a little staccato or something?
It's yeah, not necessarily a staccato, but it definitely the tongue will lightly touch the reed right when you fall into the open throat tone notes.
Oh,
Yeah, this is a really good skill. If you haven't done this before,
no.
this is something that you can do. In fact, if everybody's muted here, you can all try that. If you want to go ahead and mute yourselves, and then you play your high C, and then drop to an open G. And on the open G, I want you to just tongue as lightly as you can, like that, to make it as inaudible. So you can try experimenting with how firm or light that articulation is. I'll give everybody a second to experiment with that. It's a little crazy. So in your music, when you have something that maybe you go up to like a high D and your very next note is an open G and it starts to sound like it's spread and maybe the pitch goes a little bit flat, this might be a tool that you can use to help facilitate a consistency in the tone. Because what it sounds like is you know that that G doesn't really want to come out, it's going to want to squeak, and so maybe the jaw loosens just a little bit right in that transition. And this is really common for all clarinet players. So just something to experiment with on your own. Another thing that I wanted to mention to you, your hands are so good. You have really good facile technique. Your fingers don't have a lot of tension and stress in them, and you're moving really clearly. What I noticed is that when it's time to articulate after the moving fingers, sometimes I don't get a lot of clarity in the articulation itself. So Michelle, if you could throw that music back up there for us for just a second. We'll try to find an example of this. Okay, let's see if I can figure out a spot that might help. Yeah, let's go back to the first page. Okay, let's go here. So when we have, for example, when we go from the second line, the fermata on the high C, down to the low G, when we get into those marcatos, making sure that we can have some nice clarity on the fronts of those notes. Can you try that passage for us real quick? You can do the pickups if you like. Nice. Okay, that sounds really good. And maybe it was just a little bit in the recording. It was a little harder to hear the clarity there. Good. That sounds great. And actually your tone going through there was really, really nice as well. Let's go through that next passage where you have the offset tonguing, the two note slurs. You want to keep playing?
Ah, okay, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm hearing your articulation fine now. So maybe it was just the way that the recording was coming through before. Also, I wanted to commend you on that passage that you just played. Even in the recording, your tapered release on those high notes is really, really well done. And that's all embouchure control and strength. So nice job on that. Okay, good. The other thing that I did want to mention is just making sure that you have really good control of the arch of your fingers in your left hand when you're playing a lot of throat tones. So when you're going through these arpeggios, Michelle, if you want to put this the camera back on so I can show my hands here for just a second. But sometimes when you get into your fast technique and you're going around the clarinet very quickly, I'll notice that your left hand will kind of start to fall down in its curvature a little bit and flatten out a little bit. So if you can really think about in those arpeggios keeping a nice round motion, and not overlapping those rings at all. I'm exaggerating. You did not look like that ever. But I'm just exaggerating. So if you go a little bit too far past the holes here, what'll
Yeah.
happen is that joint will start to flatten out and you'll have a little trouble sealing quickly. So it'll make your smoothness in your technique or your legato slow down a little bit. So we can think about staying nice and rounded in there when you have a lot of arpeggios. I think that will help. So Michelle, you want to put that music back up and on the second page maybe? And we'll try this a little bit kind of slow. Can you just play for us the beginning of this page? Maybe about this tempo. And as you're in the open G's and B flats, really paying attention to that left hand and whether it's staying curved.
Okay.
Okay, great. Yes, I'm watching your hand. That looks really, really good. So there were a few times in there where you can kind of see that second finger wanting to go just a little bit further down and want to lose a little bit of its shape. And you were correcting it so beautifully. It might be difficult to do that if you're going faster. So when you feel like things are starting to get a little bit less legato, you can slow down and really pay attention to that and then try it fast again until the next time that it happens, because you do have beautiful position and motion there. I think that probably the tempo, how fast that is just getting in the way of that being all the time very consistent.
Yeah. Also,
But
also my left pinky sometimes get stuck.
yes, your
I
left
should be running
and
to.
sometimes your right hand, when you go into your side B flat over here on this side, your third finger wants to get a little lazy and kind of breaks up against that bar. We
Oh,
have to stay elevated above that rod. But I wouldn't even complain about your hand position and hand motion. It's so good. You have a couple little refinement issues that you can
yeah.
keep working on to make it even smoother. But it's just really beautifully done, and I'm excited for you. You sound great on this solo. Do you have any questions for me?
Oh, thank you very much. It's very interesting.
Well,
Yes.
great job. Thank you so much. I know everyone enjoyed your playing, all three of you today. And I hope that you've been able to read the comments that were in the chat for you. And I just want to thank Michelle for hosting and running things. Thank you so much. And I think we're about out of time, right?
We are, Mary. Thank you so much. I'm hoping everybody was just asking, how does this teaching apply to me? Because there were so many gems of wisdom in there. So, Mary, thank you so much. Thank you, Troy, Marilyn, and Brigitte. Now we've been sitting for a while, so we get to stretch our bodies and we move on to yoga with Dan. Dan, if